I finally caved and watched Inside Out. I didn't want to watch it, but it felt like I kind of had to. I didn't want to watch it for two reasons mostly. One reason being everyone's already done it. Everyone's done a review on this, and I thought, who would want to watch your tiny channel review an almost decade-old movie? Two, I just don't really have a huge interest in watching big-budget, cash cow movies like this. They feel so one-note and predictable, like Marvel movies. There isn't any magic behind them, but I thought maybe I'm being cynical, and I thought I should give it a shot. This movie is kind of told from multiple perspectives, but the main perspective is joy, one of the various emotions in Riley, the main character's head. Everything is told through the lens of Riley and her emotions and how they all interact with one another. The other emotions being sadness, fear, disgust, and anger. Each emotion has a personality that corresponds with their name, and before I go any further, I just want to say I hate joy. Not because I'm dead inside and joyless, but she just reminds me of one of those faux mental health / motivational speakers / self-help influencers that beat you over the head about mindsets and finding happiness and the key to unlocking a better life. And I find them so annoying because it feels so shallow. Don't get me wrong, I understand and get the point of changing thought patterns and perspectives and mindfulness, sure. But those types of influencers feel like rich people asking poor people why they're sad. It's not a one-to-one, but it feels very similar to me. It's like so dumb. Like, Melissa, I don't need a 10-step course in a bubble bath. I need some goddamn Zoloft. Anyway, while watching the movie, I discovered another reason I never watch Pixar movies besides being jaded. I can't really relate to them. We see Riley's life, and as she grows into being her own person with her own interests and independent thoughts, she loves hockey and hanging out with her friends and being silly. As we learn these things, the emotions explain how everything works, like core memories and the islands that power aspects of her personality that shape her into the person that she is. And Riley's life is great as far as her and her emotions are concerned, until her family moves to California, uprooting her life, and that can be a difficult experience for anybody of any age. And this is presented as a rough turning point in Riley's life, but it's hard for me to empathize, let alone sympathize with her. Like, you mean to tell me for 11 years her life was just idyllic, nothing traumatic happened, her parents don't get into fist fights, both parents are well adjusted and have not passed on generational trauma, she just quietly existed in the suburbs without a care in the world. When I was a teenager, me and my entire family was homeless for a while. Hell, we don't even have to make it about me. Just pluck any random child from any part of America that isn't white and or from the suburbs, and they can give you any number of traumatic experiences they had before and around 11 that would melt Riley's brain. By 11, I had already been called the N-word with a hard R by a white person. And that's in no way to like trauma Olympics. All pain is valid as long as you feel it, it's yours, it's real and everything. Like, I'm just saying this to be able to paint a picture for everybody to show just how far removed I am from being able to relate to a little white girl who misses the suburbs. But her pain is valid because it is ultimately hers to feel. I will admit though that some of this could be because I am out of the age range for this movie, but I would have saw this at 12 and been like, moving? That's your canon event, the critical changing point in your life? That's kind of dumb. Especially because my family is poor and renting. We move all the time. And again, I get it. Uprooting your life is hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but they are presenting this like a critical point in her life, one in which she has never experienced anything like before, or comparable to. I've been trying to cut her some slack. She's 11, in a new place, which can be uncomfortable and a lot for anyone of any age to process. But then things like this scene where her dad gets a call because an investor shows up early, and then Riley feels this wave of various emotions and disappointment, and the only thing my brain can do is be like, this is it. This is your origin story. Moving and realizing as you get older, the adults around you have responsibilities in order to provide a better life for you, but also you now have responsibilities so you won't get as much time together. Glad you figured that out, Riley. Now shape up and get into Lincoln Park just like the rest of us did. All the while, Joy is trying to keep things together in the most annoying way possible because she notices Riley is being overwhelmed by all the other emotions, which is okay. If you only experience joy about life, you're kind of weird. You should be able to be sad or angry and sit with it and learn healthy mechanisms to deal with those emotions so they don't overwhelm you, not only experiencing some sort of faux happiness. Whose life is always good? It seems psychotic to me that Riley's life was so good that you can see Joy being very obviously disturbed by the fact the memory wall isn't filled with joy right now. Hell yeah, first trauma unlocked. Riley is experiencing a wash of different emotions and disappointments as she can tell her parents, especially her dad, are under a lot of pressure. And just as Joy is walking away in defeat,
keep smiling. It would be a big help. We can do that for him. right?
Riley's mother thanks her for continuing to be happy through all of this, and I breathe a sigh of relief as she finally has some semblance of trauma. To tell a child who is in a very developmental period in their life, who is navigating their emotions and how to handle them, and telling them that they need to pretend to be happy for the adults around them, messes them up a lot. It's actually why a lot of you are people pleasers but can't seem to find anyone who is pleased with you. Instead of being taught it's okay to feel X emotion and how to handle them properly and in a healthy way by the adults around you, you were taught that to ease your suffering, you need to make sure that no one even knows you are suffering in the first place. Instead of providing a space for you to be like, hey, guardian/adult in my life, I'm feeling so angry and sad that we moved. I miss my old life, and instead of being heard and consoled through those emotions, you were taught directly or indirectly to smile anyway and pretend to feel anything else because your feelings would make things difficult for the adults around you. Whew. I was so worried this movie would be boring and I would have to just suffer through it. It may just get interesting just yet. Joy is kind of the villain in this movie. We can all agree on that, right? She's kind of a control freak narcissist who spends a great deal of time trying to make Riley experience as much joy as possible, which would be completely fine if it were to happen naturally through experiences Riley has, but she does it in a way that is like a mom who refuses to sit down and listen to your wants and needs and decides them for you. No one asks you to be the mom friend of the group, and even then, are you the mom friend because you are naturally compassionate and kind, or are you the mom friend because you feel the need to be in control of things at all times? And Joy quite obviously just wants to be in control, which is apparent with how she interacts with sadness, or admitting that she isn't supposed to do something and does it anyway when Riley is having a nightmare and she changes it to something happier. And if you don't believe me when I say Joy is the villain of the movie, she tries to desperately control how Riley's day at school will go and how she will feel. She forces sadness off to the side somewhere, out of the way, and gives everyone except her a task to do. Sadness, because it's natural to be sad, is starting to affect Riley and her memories at school. Riley is asked to talk about herself and memories, and sadness affects Riley's outlook on a happy memory, which causes Riley to cry and develop a core sad memory, which should be okay and fine, but Joy needs to control things, so instead of allowing a core memory of Riley's to just be sad and take its rightful place in Riley's mind, Joy ruins everything and gets her and sadness stranded outside of the headquarters, which in turn makes it so Riley can't even experience joy until she's back. Joy's actions aren't from a place of selflessness, they are inherently selfish. Instead of doing her job and just allowing sadness to have a core memory and putting the anxiety Joy may have about a core memory being sad to the side and making sure Riley has more happy core memories than sadness overall, she says no, only joyous core memories can exist, essentially dooming Riley to be unable to experience joy until she gets back, however long that takes. Anyway, this is a bit of a tangent, but during a dinner after Riley's first day, she seems a bit distant, so her mom nudges her to talk about her day. When Riley seems resistant, she tries to subtly make the dad do it, who is daydreaming about hockey. Anyway, it goes poorly, and Riley's dad sends her to her room. But while things were going poorly, the mom's emotions were basically asking, why do we give up a hot Brazilian helicopter pilot for this man? And I genuinely believe a decade of dysfunctional marriage, I hate my wife jokes, has ruined the concept of marriage for a whole generation. I'm obviously being a bit hyperbolic, but I distinctly remember being a child and thinking, wow, marriage sucks. Everyone in the media I'm consuming seems to hate their wives because she's annoying and nagging all the time, and the husbands are always incompetent morons. I never really saw marriage as anything loving in media. Now that I'm older, I have no interest in ever being married, and I'm happy you don't see the jokes nearly as much because they're pretty hacky, honestly. But it's odd to me that there was just like a several generation period of look how dysfunctional this marriage is, or my wife's a bitch haha comedy. Like, why would you marry and remain married to an emotionally immature imbecile of a man or an obnoxious overbearing woman? Like, why? Anyway, I also noticed that the mom's emotions are led by sadness and the dad's emotions are led by anger.
But it's right over the memory dump. If we fall, we'll be forgotten forever.
Oh, so that's what happened to my Joy. Her dumbass fell back in 6th grade. Riley is upset, so things like Goofball Island crumble into the memory dump, forcing sadness and Joy to try and navigate the maze of long-term memory. All the while, more and more islands are starting to crumble, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense objectively, because if these are core tenets of Riley's personality, it shouldn't be so flimsy as to disappear after a few bad days of being stressed, right? Much like the average minority or poor kid Riley's age, Joy becomes an abstract thought when Riley's old imaginary friend Bing Bong tells them to take a shortcut through imagination to get to train of thought. And though warned by sadness, Joy takes it upon herself to not listen, because even though she is inherently why they are stuck in there, and even though sadness has read all the manuals about this place, she decides it is in her best interest to try and get back to headquarters because she is a narcissist. My disdain for Joy aside, this is a really cool scene to watch them go through the stages of abstract thought. Ironically, for being a literal emotion, Joy is infuriatingly emotionally immature. Riley is losing interest in things she enjoyed as a child, which leads to the rocket Riley and Bing Bong used to play in being thrown in what is essentially the dump, which greatly depresses Bing Bong, rightfully so, and instead of trying to emotionally comfort and console Bing Bong, she selfishly tries to cheer him up in order to do what she wants, which again is why she reminds me of an Instagram influencer. There can be no emotion other than joy around her. To feel real, genuine happiness or joy in life, you have to be able to be at peace with the fact that you will not always experience joy, and that joy and sadness are temporary stops in life, and that's okay. A lot of life is being kind of neutral and experiencing them at points in your life for however long and appreciating them because they are proof that you are alive. Anyway, my girl Sadness comes in clutch again to keep things moving along. Joy's a lot more useless than she thinks. Riley goes to sleep after a bad day and the train of thought stops, so in order to get back to headquarters as soon as possible, Sadness has the idea of waking Riley up. Joy steals that idea and makes it her own, then has the terrible idea on top of it to make Riley feel so happy she wakes up somehow, which is obviously a bad idea but kind of furthers my point that Joy is the villain of the movie. She routinely and selfishly uses and ignores other people to further her own ambitions and desires, stopping at nothing to get what she wants. Literally the only reason Joy hasn't murdered every other emotion so that Riley can only experience joy is because of the age rating of the movie. After the first failed attempt to wake Riley up goes wrong, Bing Bong is thrown in the subconscious where Riley's fears live. Joy and Sadness get the idea that the best way to wake Riley up is to use her fear of clowns, which is crazy because that clown has more than just birthday cake back there. If someone bought a clown with that much ass to my birthday, I'd just ask if they were a stripper, because what does a clown need with all of that ass? Anger gives Riley the bright idea to run away back to Minnesota, which is admittedly kind of dumb even for a kid's movie to me. Everyone goes through things, suffers, and you shouldn't compare suffering or trauma, etc., because everyone's pain is the worst thing they've ever felt, and that's their reality. With that out of the way, wanting to run away from home because you don't like being in a new place has to be some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. It's the most let me break out my smallest violin for you moment I've ever seen in a movie. Riley isn't being abused, harmed, and she didn't go from a home to a trailer. She just lives in a different 2-bedroom house in one of the most expensive places in the world, even for 2015. So her parents aren't struggling financially. Like, I understand kids' brains aren't fully developed. They don't really think about the consequences of actions, but this feels like it goes beyond that. When I was 11, I was responsible for making sure me and my siblings get to school across town, from our pretty shitty neighborhood through even shittier neighborhoods to an okay neighborhood where our school was. It just feels so spoiled to run away and cause your family panic, stress, and her possibly getting murdered for what? I don't blame Riley for her actions in totality though. Much of the blame is on her parents for not providing a space for her to grieve the loss of the only life she's ever known and dropping her off in a completely new one. They don't explain if this was sudden or Riley had time to process and accept things before the move, so I can't say how this was handled, but being absorbed in the move and not taking a second to sit Riley down and just listen instead of talking at her is 100% on them as adults with fully developed brains. Also, stealing out of your mom's purse to run away is diabolical. I'm a grown man and I still don't even open my mother's purse if she asks me to get something from inside of it. I'll just hand it to her. Riley stealing from her mom's purse leads to Honesty Island crumbling, which knocks the train of thought Joy, Sadness, and Bing Bong were on off the tracks. Riley's long-term memory is crumbling for some reason. I'm not really sure why being stressed or sad is immediately affecting her long-term memory. I know mental illness can affect memory, but that takes some time, right, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, Joy has unironically made this movie just kind of frustrating to watch. Since she and Sadness were accidentally sent to the long-term memory due to Joy's need for control, I will remind you, she has tried to make sure that Riley's core memories do not become tainted in any way, and as the world around them crumbles and decays, they find a chute that will send them back to headquarters, and Joy in all her bravery makes the executive decision to leave Sadness behind, who has done nothing but help her the entire movie. Is that not straight villain behavior? I haven't watched any reviews or essays on this movie, but I hope I'm just behind and a lot of people see Joy as the genuine villain that she actually is. Luckily, the chute breaks and Joy and unfortunately Bing Bong fall into the pit. While in the pit, Joy cries and looks at Riley's old memories. She starts to cry looking at Riley's memories as Riley slowly forgets them and says, "I just wanted Riley to be happy," and she wipes tears off of a memory, which she realizes things aren't black and white or only work in totality when it comes to emotions, because a memory shows a different perspective that isn't just happy on the surface, but has sadness in it. The memories of when Riley missed a winning game shot that her teammates likely praised her for because she tried, but later on she felt sad about, which garnered comfort and compassion from her parents, which helps Joy realize that feeling other emotions allows other humans to see us and feel sympathy or empathy for us and give us solace from the negative emotions. And yay, character growth is fine, but it is crazy that she has to reckon with her own mortality for that growth to happen. And growth is always appreciated, but I don't really have sympathy for Joy, and I still view her as a villain. And you might be like, but she isn't a villain, her actions were ultimately altruistic. So were Thanos's. They genuinely both believe that their actions will lead to some greater and necessary good, and would stop at nothing to achieve them because that good is greater than one person. And sure, you could say Joy isn't a villain because Thanos never showed a change of heart narratively. He was a remorseless fanatic. Alright, cool, you discovered the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath. Good for you. But also crazy that all it takes for someone to stop being a villain is to cry and realize they did something wrong. Maybe that's why you keep replying to that shitty ex whenever they text you, "I'm sorry, I miss you." Bing Bong sacrifices himself in order for Joy to make it out of the pit, and Joy sets off to find sadness. While this is happening, Riley is making her way to the bus station to run away, and her parents and the rest of the emotions realize something is not right. At this point, I kind of just want the movie to hurry up. Sadness is running away from Joy because she feels bad, as though Riley doesn't need her because Joy has made her feel that way the entire movie. The other emotions realize they can no longer make Riley feel anything. Joy and Sadness make it back to headquarters just as Riley's bus pulls off with Riley in it. Sadness saves the day because being sad and facing those emotions head on is good, blah blah blah. More importantly, we are told that Riley didn't even go to school that day and her parents don't remember what she was wearing. Which, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is wrong with her parents? She's 11. What if she got kidnapped by some weirdo or creep on her way to school? She walks to school by herself. 2, what the fuck did Riley do for 8 hours with no money in San Francisco if she didn't go to school that day? Cause she's at the bus stop at night. Joy lets Sadness take control of things and allow Riley to experience sadness, and then there's a montage, an emotional moment of Riley finally crying, expressing her sadness and her parents embracing her and saying they also miss Minnesota and that it's okay. Again, I think I just can't really relate to Riley because I had a vastly different life experience growing up as a poor black kid in a city. So while I can sympathize with Riley, human to human, that her experiences are her own and her sadness is real because they are hers to feel, I don't really feel anything as someone who is viewing them as a watcher. Though I will admit that I do appreciate what the story is trying to convey conceptually, that growing up in life isn't black and white and about only experiencing joy, and that in life more often than not you will be met with a mix of emotions that can still be appreciated. And that's really the point of life. I just don't really care for the characters. The movie ends with Riley playing a hockey game. She's now 12 and her parents are there to support her, and the emotions in Riley's heads have a new console that they can all use. Everyone's changed for the better. And I gotta say, the movie is okay. I don't really get the hype, and I'll admit I'm definitely again out of the age range for the movie, but I generally got the impression that this would be one of the best animated movies ever. And I don't say that as though I have some sort of sophisticated film buff palate that only enjoys movies made by some mentally ill dude who died at 40 from untreated syphilis. I just genuinely expected something different. It's okay at times. I felt like it went on kind of long near the end. Like I genuinely felt like they started to pad the deck near the end a little bit. I didn't really like anyone besides Anger and Sadness, but even then not really. It's just the bar was in hell. I just found myself sitting through the movie and not engaged with it. This isn't the worst movie I've ever seen. In fact, I like the art style, the scenery, the concept, even the humor isn't bad. I didn't laugh, but I can recognize when something is genuinely a good joke. I really genuinely like the concept of the movie, that emotions are these physical things and not concepts that are doing an actual job in your brain. I think that's fun. That's why I think this movie is just kind of okay for me.